Me and my wife, we were riding. We went to the Bronx the other day. So we pull up to the light, and this old lady comes up on like one of those little scooters, and she's like, "Mongrels?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You with the mongrels?" And I'm like, "No, ma'am, we're not." And she's like, "All right." And she just drove away. But it struck me as funny. But, you know, I believe that a lot of people have that reaction when they see the motorcycles and the vests and the patches. You know, they don't really get to read them. They just kind of like see them and like, "Oh, this guy's with the mongrels," you know, or whatever.
Welcome to Riding Counsel with Rich Jaffe, where the open road meets expert advice. I'm Richard Jaffe, an attorney and biking enthusiast, and this is the podcast where we dive into the world of motorcycling, safety, culture, charitable giving, and riding right. So, whether you're a seasoned rider or just getting started, let's talk bikes, the road, and everything in between. Let's ride! Good morning. Good morning. We have a special guest, a very special guest with us today on the podcast. So thank you everybody for listening. And while he needs no introduction at all from me, I'm going to have him introduce himself to the rest of you all. Good morning to you, sir. Who are you? Where do you come from?
Good morning, sir. My name is William Valentin. Where do I come from? I come from Medford, New York. Where do I originally come from? I come from the Bronx, New York. And I like to ride motorcycles. Something tells me that that's important.
All right. So you were born in the Bronx?
Yes, I was born in the Bronx.
That's great. That's great. So how long were you in the Bronx for?
So my family, I'm the first one born in the Bronx from my family. We're Puerto Rican descent.
Yeah.
I was born in the Bronx. I lived there for about 13 years. And then my father moved us all out to Suffolk County, Long Island, as far as you could get from the Bronx. So, yeah.
So what can you tell us about growing up in the Bronx? What was that like?
I mean, it was interesting because at the time I grew up in the Bronx, I was just talking to a friend of mine about it. The Bronx was in shambles. There was gutted out buildings everywhere. That's where a lot of people would hang out and play. My building wasn't gutted out, thank God. But it was a difficult area. I lived on Elder Avenue by Soundview and Watson, down by the Bronx River Parkway, and you know, I mean, I had a typical childhood. You know, not a Long Island childhood. We used to play in the fire hydrants and the puddles and stuff. And you know, I was kind of younger, so I didn't really get the full experience of going wild in the Bronx. But then Dad moved us all out to Long Island, and it was quite different.
This episode has been brought to you by Riding Counsel. Don't forget to visit us at ridingcounsel.com. So when you were in the Bronx, I guess that's before like 10 years old, let's say, that was in the 70s?
Yes.
So it was a different time than it is now.
Yes, it was it looks completely different than it does now. Sometimes I visit my old house where I used to live, and you could see the difference. It's still not that great, but it's way better than it was before. Yeah.
So you grew up. You went through the school system after the Bronx. You went in Medford. Is that where you went to school?
Yeah. Well, then I went into the Patchogue Medford School District at the time because we moved to Medford. Yes, which I still live there now.
And then you got out of school, and where'd you end up working?
So you know, I did the normal work here and there. I worked in Carvel. I worked in the mall. I did like security guard work, a lot of stuff like that. My dad was a New York City correction officer, so I kind of like was trying to follow in his footsteps. And you know, we made a deal. He's like, "Look, you go to college, I'll buy you a car." He didn't buy me a car. He gave me an old orange Volvo wagon. But
it had four wheels and an engine.
He paid the insurance on it, and I was allowed to live in the house for free if I went to college. And he's like, "You don't go to college?" He's like, "You pay me rent, and you pay for your own car. And then if you don't go to college and you don't get a job, then you're out of here." So I chose option A. Went to college, got out. Took a bunch of law enforcement tests. I wanted to be an architect. I stunk in math.
Who doesn't?
I tried, but it just never worked, so that was out. took a lot of civil service tests, and they called me for quite a few of them. I actually wound up going to the state police, New York State Police, went to the academy, did my 6 months, and then they wanted to send me to like Canada or something like that. And I was like, no way.
Puerto Ricans don't do cold.
No, I mean, I don't mind it, but generally no.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that. So they called me for U.S. Postal Police, NYPD, and New York City Corrections. At the time, New York City Corrections was 20-year pension, straight out. They had plenty of overtime. My father worked there, and he's like, look, man, you need to come this way. So that's what I did.
All right. And where did this motorcycle thing come from? This Puerto Rican kid growing up in the Bronx, playing in the sprinklers, and now he's on a motorcycle. Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I don't want to make a derogatory statement. Let me see. I don't know how to phrase it any better. The white kids. I came out to Suffolk County, and the white kids had bikes. I started out in a 50cc pull start little mini bike.
Yeah.
My friend had it, and I was like, wow, this is great. And I started riding it, and it was great. And then another one of my friends had a trike at the time.
Yeah.
It was a mini bike, but it was 3 wheels. They outlawed them since, and you're not allowed to get those anymore. But I rode one of those. I loved it, and then I waited a little while, and when I was like 17 years old, I started riding.
Wow.
And I never stopped.
Wow, that's amazing. And so now, are you still a correctional officer? Or?
No. I worked for the Department of Correction for 27 years. Mm-hmm. I retired in 2017. I could have retired earlier, but I stayed on a little bit for a little more money. But I was 47 when I retired, and I'm enjoying the good life now.
Excellent.
I never worked another day in my life, and I'm out here doing the things that I want to do with my family and my friends, and I love it. Life is good.
I really appreciate what you did for society,
Thank you.
Not only for me personally, but for society. You've done a lot as a correctional officer, and I think people overlook that. They see police officers because police officers are in the street, they're in the cars, but correctional officers, not so much. They don't understand what a correctional officer does or what a correctional officer really is.
It's a thankless job. I think law enforcement in general is a thankless job. I'm also a 9/11 first responder. When we responded down to Ground Zero, I worked for the Emergency Service Unit for the Department of Correction. We were very well trained at the time. So the city called on us to do search and rescue recovery operations down there. And our uniforms looked just like NYPD uniforms. So whenever they would report who was down there, they'd always say NYPD, FDNY, EMS, and they'd never, ever include New York City correction officers. But my unit in general was about maybe 150, 175 guys. And we worked there the first 2 days, 24 hours straight, and then 12 hours a day for 6 days a week for the next 6 months. We worked down there.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was something else.
That's incredible. Well, I thank you, and I know there's a lot of other people out there that thank you for that. So we really appreciate you. But now you're riding bikes, and that's great. You're enjoying life. You're out of a cage, and you're ripping it up in the streets. So
you and me both.
Yeah. All right. So we've ridden together.
Yes.
For those people out there. We've ridden together a lot, and in fact, we're in the same motorcycle club. Well, why don't you tell me you're in a motorcycle club now? So why don't you tell everybody about the motorcycle club that both you and I belong to?
Okay. So it's the Blue Knights Motorcycle Club. Blue Knights is an international motorcycle club. Pretty much any country you go to visit, there's many Blue Knights chapters there. In the United States, you go to a state, you're going to have anywhere between 5, 10, 15 different chapters in that state of the club. It's a well-known organization that's been around for quite some time. I am the secretary of the Blue Knights New York Chapter 1, which was the first New York chapter of the Blue Knights and the largest at the time. There have been many other clubs that have popped up since. we the slogan is Ride with Pride. It's made up of law enforcement officers. If you have the ability to make arrests and the authorization to carry a firearm, and you're a law enforcement officer, you can get into the club. We also have other positions, honorary positions and associate positions in the club. And we like to do a lot of charity work. We like to give back to the community. We support other law enforcement motorcycle clubs, and we get to ride a whole lot. So it's great. And you are also one of our members as well.
That I am. And
I have something for you later today, by the way.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope it's okay. Well, we'll leave that one alone for now. But you mention a lot with law enforcement and firearms, and we're referring to the Blue Knights as a motorcycle club, but a lot of people will get this image that, wow, they're in this motorcycle club and they have guns and they're riding around and they're patrolling and they're vigilantes and they're going to shoot somebody with this. Is it anything like that?
It's nothing like that. And most people look at anybody with patches on a leather vest as a motorcycle gang. That's everywhere I go, when people talk to me, they're like, "What gang are you in?"
Yeah.
And it's really not like that. There's two aspects of the MC community.
MC, motorcycle
club.
Yes.
Is the gangs, the 1% clubs, which may or may not be involved in criminal activity or anything like that. And then there's regular motorcycle clubs where a bunch of guys get together, they invent a club, they take a patch and they get out there and they start riding. And then there's law enforcement motorcycle clubs. I think that's what you're asking me about. So as a law enforcement officer in the state of New York anyway, and as a correctional officer, you're entitled to carry a firearm after retirement in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. So you do this to protect yourself and protect your family and protect others. So you really never stop being a law enforcement officer. You might retire, but you still have that mindset and you still have the authorization and ability to intervene when necessary. So, a lot of these LE clubs, they get a bad rap. These guys are dedicated individuals who have families and who love their families and who love their fellow man. So we'll be out there. The majority of the things we do are charity events, raising money to help people and things of that sort. So when you see a whole group of motorcycle riders riding through your town, they're probably donating a whole lot of money someplace. And, I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. But the LE clubs, we're out there. We are regular people just like you. We just wear this fancy stuff because that's what each club does.
Like when I go to court, I wear a suit and tie. When I'm riding a motorcycle, I wear the appropriate gear. I mean, I'm wearing my vest now.
Correct.
I'm in the motorcycle mood. So, and I'm proud to be a member of the Blue Knights. But I think you make an important distinction between two things. There's motorcycle clubs, who essentially are clubs of people who are enthusiasts, as opposed to, I think you call them 1%ers. What's a 1%er?
So the term 1% comes from the overall motorcycle community. So you have 99% of the motorcycle community. They just want to ride. They just want to be out there doing their thing. And then you have the 1% of the motorcycle community who are actually a motorcycle gang or a motorcycle gang out there, and they may have, different obligations than we do as law enforcement. They may or may not be committing crimes. They may or may not be involved in some activity as a group that, makes it a little bit more sinister. So that's why that 1% came up. Like I said, the law enforcement motorcycle community is a bunch of active and retired law enforcement officers and like-minded individuals like you, Rich, who joined up to, give to the charities and become a part of it and support law enforcement and ride everywhere.
I'm really, it makes me happy to be able to use my love for motorcycles and riding in the community to also giving back in the community through charities and philanthropic work. And I know there's a lot that I'm proud of, but I'm sure you've done a lot of charity work too. So maybe you can talk about what the importance of charity is and what kind of things you've done to support these charities.
Well, Rich, you surely know about the charity work because you are the first one to raise your hand anytime we talk about doing a charity event or we need to raise money for a specific thing. And I know we appreciate you for that. I was the vice president of my past motorcycle club, and in that club I did a lot of charity work. We like motorcycle riders like to do charity work for kids. So Shriners Children's Hospital, Stony Brook Children's Hospital, anything involving kids. One of the best charity events that I was part of, we went to Stony Brook Children's Hospital. It was freezing cold like it is today. And this guy dressed up in a Superman outfit. And we had law enforcement and we had EMS and FDNY and all these people that were there. And they took a cherry picker, a fire truck with the extendable ladder, and they put Superman on that ladder. And Superman went up, and the kids weren't allowed to come outside. A lot of them were contagious, whatever. And Superman would go to their window and knock on their window and go to each room and do it. It was the coolest thing I ever seen. And those are the type of things that we're involved in. Subsequently that day, they collected toys and money, and they went around and they gave each of the kids toys for Christmas, and they gave money to certain charities. That's the type of stuff that we're looking to do, and that's God's work. You know, it's great. And if I could be a part of it, and you certainly are a part of it, that's what it's all about.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, it makes you feel good while doing it. And also you get a chance to use your love for motorcycles for something really good. And I think that's a common misperception of so many people out there that, oh, he's a gang member. He's riding his bike. He's riding his Harley. And look at him. He's really a nuisance to society. But nothing could be farther from the truth.
I mean, like I said, 99% of the clubs out there, they're not. Me and my wife, we were riding. We went to the Bronx the other day. So we pull up to the light, and this old lady comes up on like one of those little scooters, and she's like, "Mongrels?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You with the mongrels?" And I'm like, "No, ma'am, we're not." And she's like, "All right." And she just drove away. But it struck me as funny. But, you know, I believe that a lot of people have that reaction when they see the motorcycles and the vests and the patches. You know, they don't really get to read them. They just kind of like see them and like, oh, this guy's with the mongrels,
yeah,
you know, or whatever.
Yeah, it's a big stereotype, but you know, bikers are just normal people, and you know, they're all aspects of life. All aspects of life are bikers. So you don't have to be one particular kind of person to own a bike and ride a bike.
Correct.
And you also don't have to be that kind of person to enjoy it. But I think what club you're a part of really says a lot about you as a person. Because if you're going to be in the 1%, as we were talking before, those 1%ers who are notoriously famous or notoriously infamous for being a 1%er, that says something about you. Right. And if you're going to be part of like the Blue Knights, who does a lot of great work with kids, with charities, and for each other, that says another thing about you. So I think bikers have to choose what really they want to be a part of.
And let me put a disclaimer in. So I know some 1%ers and some members of my previous club they grew up with some of these guys. And some of these guys were swell guys. And I've been to events where we pull in and it winds up being a 1% event and we just pull out. But I've been to events where they do charity work also. You know, I've seen it. And not everybody that's part of that club might not be so horrible. It's like people in the world. Everywhere you go, no matter where you work, no matter who you're around, there's always that guy. You know that guy, right, Rich?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's the really cool guy. There's the guy that just is angry about everything. There's the guy that he's a stickler for the rules. There's another guy that's always late. They're everywhere. They're in every job. They're in every occupation. They're in every motorcycle club. Yeah, so we're just people at the end of the day.
You can't even stereotype in the 1% clubs.
I try not to.
You can't. And you know, I your point is well taken. And you know, it's something that everybody is an individual, and as a club, they probably do a lot of nice things, a lot of good things. So, you know, I think you have to look at everybody as a whole and the club as a whole.
Correct. Have there been, you know, news reports of this and that? Sure, there have. And if you're walking down the wrong alley at the wrong time of day, maybe that might be the case, but not always. So you got to be on your P's and Q's no matter what.
Look, it's just like the police officers. There's, you know, one bad apple don't spoil the whole bunch.
That's correct.
So
they're in every occupation.
I'm a lawyer, so I can tell you there's some really shifty lawyers out there. So and I don't want to be associated with them.
Right.
And so, you know, they run in every group, and you really just have to find your own clan.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah. All right. So you're a member of the club, and clubs usually ride together, right? And we have destinations. It could be a restaurant. It could be a nice place, a scenic place. What would you tell people driving their cars who are riding in their cars and they see a group of motorcyclists in a club riding all together? What is the car supposed to do?
Good question. Look, I just rode to drop my bike off this morning in the freezing cold where there's ice on the road and salt and all sorts of stuff. And it's almost like a blood sport out there where people are literally trying to kill you. I think that people should be aware of motorcycle riders at any time of the year because we're always out there. I know I am, more so in the summer, but at any time. They should keep an eye on them. And when a motorcycle rider rides past you quickly, it doesn't mean they're trying to race you. It just means that they're trying to get out of your blind spot so that you can see them. A lot of motorcycle riders have loud pipes, and they believe that if you can hear them, then you'll be able to see where they are. It's all about safety on the road with us. And when we ride in a pack, normally we ride in a staggered formation, and we take up as much room as either a car or an 18-wheeler, or even more than that. I've ridden in groups where hundreds of bikes are in a group. Normally those are police escorted. But if you see them, just pull over to the right lane, let them pass, and just be aware that they're out there. Don't make any sudden movements. Don't, text and drive. You never know when there's somebody next to you on a bike.
I mean, it sounds so easy to just these little things, right? Don't text and drive. Okay, we all say that. But also, if you see that group behind you, just let them pass. Right. It's a very easy thing. Just let them pass, and let's not make the road more dangerous than it already has to be. Don't panic. No one's, the bike clubs are not going to surround you and force you off the road. Nothing like that is going to happen. They just want to ride their motorcycles, and they just want to do so in a safe way.
And don't forget, in a car, if you make a mistake, if you're texting and you swerve into the other lane and you bounce off the other car next to you, you pull over to the side of the road, you fill out some paperwork, and you go on your way. It's not the same with a bike. If you're texting, or if you're not paying attention, or if you're swerving around and you hit a bike, it could be the death of that person. So it's a very different scenario on a motorcycle than in a car, and people should be aware of that.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we have to consider things like wind. I mean, if it's a windy day, all it has to do is catch a motorcycle the wrong way, and they veer a little bit to the left or the right, and it's not something that they can help. But that's why cars really shouldn't ride next to these motorcycle clubs. Really, they should either be behind them, in front of them, but don't ride next to them.
Correct. And if you notice, the bikers will always try not to ride next to the cars. They'll try to get past them quickly so that they don't have to stay in that area.
Right.
Because me and my wife were on the Throgs Neck Bridge the other day when we went to the Bronx, and it was very windy. And you say it moves the bike a little. I beg to differ. I mean, we had a point where I literally went into the next lane. Thank God no one was there. But the wind just pushes you. So it's
and there's really not much you could do about that other than not ride. But
get
I mean,
back in the same lane again.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing you can really anticipate. You know, the winds come out of nowhere.
Correct.
But you know, another thing that I'd really like to talk about that I've seen once, twice, and it is sort of unfortunate, but I always find out different signals that bikers will give not only other bikers but drivers. So, for instance, if you see a motorcycle and it's pulled over on the side of the road, and 100 feet maybe before the motorcycle that's pulled over, you'll see that biker's helmet on the ground. You know, that's a signal, but I think I know what it means, but maybe you can clarify for not only other motorcyclists, but people who are driving their car.
It's a signal for assistance. So if the motorcycle rider pulls over to the side of the road with maybe a medical emergency, maybe an emergency on the bike, maybe, you know, it could be anything, and they deem that to be an emergency, they'll walk a couple of, like 100 feet behind the bike or whatever, and put the helmet down first. And that, most motorcyclers see that and know that to be a distress. So they'll pull over to help that person. Most people in cars probably wouldn't know what that means, but that is what that means.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some of this information will get to them, and you know, you never can tell what's going to happen on a motorcycle, or you know, it's just like riding a car; anything can happen.
Correct.
So you really have to be prepared. But anyway, Bill, I know you're really busy, and you got a lot of bike riding to do, but I wanted to thank you for your time. Thanks for your information that you gave here about motorcycles, about yourself, about the Blue Knights. I mean, it really was a lot of information that you shared, so we really appreciate you coming by.
Anytime. Anything for you, Rich. You're the man. Thank you so much. And I'll see you tonight.
All right. Tonight meeting. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Riding Counsel with Richard Jaffe. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the ride, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow riders. Until next time, keep the rubber side down and ride safe.